Welcome to Buying Sandlot. I'm Kyle Pagan along with Kyle Scott. We've got a solid episode for you today with Frank Decembrino, CEO of Clubhouse Partners. But before we get into the show, tickets for our Youth Sports Business Conference in Philadelphia on April 14th and 15th, where you can hear Frank speak, are still available. Early bird tickets are on sale, but they will increase on January 31st. Be sure to be there because we've got an amazing set of speakers you won't want to miss, from Team Snap, Fast Break, AI, Huddle, Game Changer, and more. We'll be announcing in the newsletter every week as we get closer to the event at Ballers. Kyle, Frank Decembrino, CEO of a company that helps scale youth sports clubs. He's an interesting guy because he owns so much of the space. He manages a sports facility. He is a CEO of a youth sports club. He advises a sports technology company. So I think it's a really good conversation that we have with a very interesting guy, kind of tackles all kind of levels of the space.
Yeah, so Frank runs Clubhouse Partners, and Clubhouse provides capital and support to mission-driven baseball clubs. Sitting somewhere between seed money and private equity, Clubhouse aims to partner with clubs to improve their operations, grant access to class-leading facilities, and improve training and player outcomes. With deep background in the facility space, Frank is a proponent of the membership dues model versus trying to monetize every square foot of a facility around the clock. A genuine baseball guy and a leading operator, Frank has some candid thoughts on youth development, club operations, and the state of youth baseball in America. So let's get to our interview with Frank. All right, Frank, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here and talk with you guys.
You're our first guest. We should call this Between Two Kyles. You're the first guest for both of us.
Very cool. I'm honored.
Why don't you we had to give it to a Philly guy. Why don't you give a little bit of your background and what led you to Clubhouse Partners? Because I think it's pretty unique story in the youth space.
Yeah, sure. So I was a long time educator. I was a high school phys ed teacher and a district coordinator for health phys ed and the arts. And I was also the head baseball coach at Cheltenham High School. I had a 14-year tenure there. And really my business journey happened organically, trying to improve the baseball experience in Cheltenham Township, in the neighborhood. I grew up in Fox Chase, and I grew up at the playground there. And I Cheltenham and Fox Chase are, a neighborhood apart, even though they're Montgomery County and Philly, but close enough where I could establish, a summer camp and winter clinics that could help the kids in Cheltenham and where I grew up to learn the game and to just improve. I just had a passion for teaching, and that series of projects, the Fox Chase Baseball Academy was the first one, and then the Cheltenham High School Winter Clinics kind of developed a following of families that were really just interested in better instruction and player development, like I was doing for my varsity players. So that was the beginning of it. That following kind of just pushed me organically through the process of building a facility with my partner, Shannon Gumby, who was the coach at Wissahickon at the time. We took over Amber Sports Academy, and all those kids from the summer camp and his camp in Wissahickon and Cheltenham kind of started to develop there. And then we grew that one, needed to double in size. And then ultimately, after 18 years of teaching, the Fieldhouse opportunity came about. And once we got that project up and running, all of the side businesses that were connected to baseball needed my full attention. There was a great opportunity, and I was really passionate about it.
And that ultimately leads you to Clubhouse Partners, which you're running now. When you walk us through what that is, I know you guys have a bit of a unique model and a unique view on things, and that's where we really want to get into.
Yeah, so during Amber Sports Academy time, which was the first small facility, we probably took over 2012 officially, but my partner Shannon and I were involved from its beginning in 2007. And we were a teaching and learning facility. We had Tim Johnson, who's our lead instructor to this day with the Boilermakers. We wanted to teach kids how to be better base players, have small groups and clinics and camps. And along that journey, travel baseball evolved. First, we started working with the local little leagues, Lower Gwinnett and Whitpain and Glenside, Upper Dublin. And then it kind of went into, now these travel teams were kind of popping up like crazy. At the time, I was a high school coach, and I really didn't have the time and the capacity to do that. But once we started focusing on the business full time, I realized there was an opportunity to develop an organization and instill in that organization what I believed in, which has been the ethos of everything I've worked on, which is education driven. learning how to teach using pedagogy and progressions and long-term development that was needed at the youth and high school level outside of high school and traditional community programs. So I created the Boilermakers, the Amber Boilermakers, which was a travel group. Started with one team, and we added a team each year intentionally because using my teaching background, I wanted to professionally develop each coach until I found the right leaders. And over time, that was kind of operating parallel. So we exited that facility, sold it, because it was clear that we've hit our capacity, and we took on money and exited. But I kept the Boilermakers. So I had the Boilermakers, and Fieldhouse was running separately. And I realized with the Boilermakers that I was hitting some walls. I couldn't get further along without support. And I realized that this was the case with a lot of operators as I was working in my former company, and kind of going over like, how could this be better? What do we need? What are the barriers of success to maintain professionalization for our instructors, our key people, and for ourselves as the owners? And when I was sharing that with Dave Amaro, who's my partner now, Clubhouse, and Ryan Kaplan, who also had a facility at one point in an organization, we realized that if we pulled our resources together and developed a company that supported talented operators that were hitting these growing pains, that we could help a lot of people, and there was a really strong business model behind that. And was the beginning of Clubhouse Partners. We didn't want to get in the way. We wanted to give them the resources and support they needed, because what was happening was growth and success was actually creating, was exposing cracks in their models, including myself. So bringing, a talented group together and maintaining culture from their brands, but kind of having an overarching company that supported all the pain points, really accelerated. And those first two brands proved to us that we were onto something. And we, got involved with a facility, and so we could house our own training and give the kids resources. And it's been kind of moving pretty quick since then.
So where do you guys sit maybe on like the spectrum of, you kind of have the private equity outcomes on one side, and then you have like seed, friends and family money on the other sides, founder money. How do you guys think about how you work with organizations? Who are you targeting? And then I guess, where are you targeting them, right? You guys have the local facility, and you're able to have two clubs be able to utilize it, right? So there is like this sort of like the centralization that works for you now. But if you guys expand outside the area and things like that, like how do you think about having like a home base facility and then building a cluster around it? What's sort of like the roadmap look like?
Yep. So, efficiency wise, we would love for it to be regional and local, which is going to be our intention. But baseball's international. It's specifically national in this kind of industry. So our KPIs are really based on the leader, the person or the group that is, the founder or the operator. And if they have aligned values and they believe in player development and culture, and a positive journey for their athletes, then that's kind of how we're going to start looking for, partners. And it's really important to understand that we're not a franchise. We're more of a platform that supports people. We don't want to take away their culture, their baseball decision-making. We just want to offer guidance and support, and through shared infrastructure and aligned capital, we feel like we can accelerate their growth, which in turn would accelerate the growth of Clubhouse Partners and our value. So what we're experiencing on the private equity side is there's a lot of money coming in. And listen, I was a part of it. I had a career in it as a business development officer. But there's a lot of, square peg issues where the talent and the creativity and the relationships that these people develop, once things switch over towards spreadsheets, margins, and bottom lines, there seems to be neglect in those areas that I believe are the secret sauce that I think it's detrimental to take away. The problem is the speed of the return that's in the private equity world is often not like conducive to what it really takes in regards to a runway to success once you start infusing those resources. So we're looking for specific individuals that align in those things. We don't want transactional people. We're looking more for transformational. If I had these resources and this support, this is where I can see our program evolving. And truly, if we can do this for people once we leave or they leave and the organization and the culture carries on without us, then we've been successful. Because right now, a lot of these founders, they've kind of put themselves inside a prison. They have this great product, but there's no real true way to exit and get the full value or retire even. So we're looking for like-minded individuals that are, solely focused on development and experience.
Yeah, gotcha. When baseball and softball clubs are coming to you guys for an investment, what's typically like the number one thing they're looking for right now? Is it like more infrastructure, more technology capabilities, marketing, sponsorship? Are they just looking to get out? I'd be interested to know what kind of the number one they're looking for right now.
It's a great question. Some people are looking to exit and retire, and they to be completely transparent, that may not fit with us at this moment. We're looking to partner with people who are, that still want to develop and evolve. What they're looking for is kind of all of it, and it depends on their talent and their background. So if they need technology and support in that area, then we can provide that. Some are looking because they're underfunded, or they've gotten to that hamster wheel of like they're paying themselves with unearned revenue and really holding their breath for the next year's registration. Some of it is their capital doesn't get them as far as they need to go to have strong infrastructure. The biggest example of that is, the Boilermakers, the Bandits, the groups in the clubhouse. We have relationships with tournament directors and scheduling. So we have already purchased, tournament positions into 26 and 27. A small business operator that's, really struggling to get by each month, they can't lay out that, that kind of capital to secure their tournament. So then that leads to a pain point when the parents say, well, where are we playing this summer? And I say, well, we'll let you know soon. What they're really saying is we got to see where the tryouts are. And once we have the money, we can get in. So that's where like capital helps these guys. It could be facility. They may be renting facilities and paying for third-party services that are just draining their bottom line or their margin. And we're not trying to help them profiteer. We're just trying to get them to a point of profitability so that they're sustainable. Because if they're not, all their talent starts leaving and they can't get into tournaments, and parents, there's attrition. So to answer your question, it's really all of it. Depends on where they're weakest.
Gotcha. Now that's you mentioned sustainable, which thank you for the layup for my next question. Your business models on your end. What is the most sustainable for you in youth sports when you do look at these these clubs that you guys are helping with capital and investment? Is it membership fees? Is it sponsorships, franchising, partnerships? Is it tournaments, rental facilities? What kind of on your end are you saying are the most kind of sustainable in youth sports right now?
The programs that are intentional with player development and have a structured program in place, to me, are the most sustainable, because they typically operate on almost like a tuition at a school, where they're pulling together the experience. There's not a lot of surprises. There's not a lot of upselling. It's more direct towards, hey, you're investing in us to take you on this journey, and this is what we're going to do. This is what it looks like. It's very structured, and that player development holistic journey approach, to me, is the most sustainable from what I'm seeing and kind of what the tea leaves are saying about where we're heading in youth sports. I think in essence, before it was, where did you get my kid? Where did we travel to? What was the coolest shirt? Now parents are looking at the end of the year and saying, what was the experience? Is my son or my daughter a better person? Did they learn more than they'd had? Did they acquire more skills than they had the year before? Is there a progression here? Who's training them? These are all like examples of a more mature parent now, because we're finally hitting that generation where these are people that were participating in the beginning of this journey, and now they're smarter than my parents were when people were selling, youth sports product. So sustainability to me is definitely player development and a positive journey through the program.
I want to get into the membership model and the facility piece in a sec, but you mentioned that, interesting what you said about the parents there, that like the parent you're starting to see now is, I don't know if they're quite millennials yet, but you're approaching getting an older millennial parent in it, if not now, then very soon. And it sounds like there's a shift in mentality there. Is that like real recent, something you're seeing?
I think it's real recent, public facing, but I've felt it over the last 2 years. There's been signs coming from the college coaches and those programs and scouts as well. They used to ask just, before it was every person had a metric device in their hand. Every parent now has them, and the cell phone has decentralized and democratized a lot of these things. Before it was like, how hard does he throw? X, Y, Z. This typical metrics. Now it's who's training him. Where does he do his S&C? What school does he go to? Who's his high school coach? Is this a show and go program, or are you guys getting after it all winter? And like, if so, who's responsible for pitching development? Because pulling all these things together, which kind of leads to On the Radar, that was kind of the reason we started the CRM platform, was because we wanted to be able to put all that information into the hands of the player and his stakeholders so that they could tell the story and find themselves in the right situation, whether it's with sport or not. But yeah, like I felt it before. It was like, now you'll get a kick out of this. Like, they're reading things like your newsletter, right? They're on X, they're on TikTok. There's information out there. There are people evangelizing what's good and bad about youth sports. And a parent will ask me, are you guys a franchise? Or is there a national team? How do you get to one? What does it mean? Like, which Florida events are you going to? Are you going just for the experience, or are you going for ranking? Like, they're asking questions that before was not public information, just because they didn't ask. And now they're looking at like, hey, we're going to commit to this program. We're investing serious money because these things have a price tag. At the end of it, are we going to look back and be like, that was awesome, and my kid has this, better understanding of how to be an athlete and a student athlete, and is it going to help them on and off the field? Before it was like, can you get my kid into college? And that was the end of it. So yeah.
You think that's just a function that of parents being more educated, like the younger parents you're seeing, having grown up with the internet, understanding where to find stuff, being a more educated buyer of probably everything, right? From shoes to clothes to their kids' sports. Is it just that simple? Whereas the older, Gen X boomer guys are coming in like, cool, like throws 84. Awesome.
Right. Yeah, no, I think it's they're more in tune. They're more dialed into what's out there, and they're information hungry, and information's at their fingertips. So I think they're paying attention. And also, like, there's, whisper down a lane, the kids from the previous generation are now coaches, and they're saying, hey, like, these were my missteps. This is really what you should be signed up for, not this. Like, it's not all it's cracked up to be. Like, look for the sage that's going to teach you that wins in the end. And now with like all the attrition in college sports because of the rule changes and the actual, potential of playing Division I sports right now is very different than it was a couple years ago. And they're seeing these kids hit their reality 2 years, 3 years ahead of them, and those parents all talk. So I think it's just a recipe of more information being readily accessible and being talked about more on the sidelines than there ever has been before.
I think that's actually probably pushing some of the larger tech platforms in the space to modernize quickly, right? They're probably able to get by, the older ones to get by a little longer on, just sort of, the meat and potatoes of it, right? And now parents who are, grew up using apps to run their lives are looking for more out of the tech. One of the,
look for like,
you mentioned
what do I do with this info? That's what they're looking for.
You mentioned On the Radar, which I know is like your CRM sort of spin-off. I know it's a separate company, but probably a good place to talk about it. And, both from the tech perspective and how it's sort of helping to inform college decisions.
Yeah. So it's exactly what it is, a CRM, where basically the player is the center of the universe, and all the information that player collects and identifies as important to him or her along their journey is all processed through On the Radar. And it gives the counselors, the advisors, the recruiting coordinators, the coaches, gives them the ability to see a picture of this player holistically rather than just through vanilla metrics and maybe a one-off showcase sighting. It also empowers the parents of the players and the player himself or herself to be able to really examine the opportunities out there and understand what these colleges are, what they offer, what they cost, really kind of dive into realities. And this platform kind of manages all that. It doesn't get them recruited. It doesn't tell them exactly where to go. But what it does is it synthesizes all the information and leads to a better decision. And my partners may say that there's probably other KPIs that they want to stress, but for me as a brand owner and a person that's responsible for player development, we want them to be happy their second year of college and third and then the rest of their lives, rather than, hey, I committed, I got the Instagram post, this is awesome, and then realize that they're at a university that doesn't fit any of their needs outside of qualifying to get on the diamond. And we felt like that was missing. There's just so much information, and it was Google Sheets and Post-it notes and text messages. All of that can be ingested and then synthesized and processed and distributed at the player's will.
Mm-hmm. How's the business of baseball recruiting kind of changed in the last 5 years? Obviously, of course, there's NIL now, but is there anything else that maybe a person who doesn't have a kid that's going through recruiting in baseball right now? And I just wondering, kind of how On the Radar combats those challenges they bring with it.
Yeah, so it's evolved, right? Because before it was you would get measured in the metrics that are important. I'm not dismissing them. Physical metrics tell a story, and different programs have player profiles and they project differently. But those metrics are they prove that you can get into the arena. If you're going to hit the ball over 90 miles per hour, then you qualify for somebody that can play college baseball.
Gotcha.
But there's a lot more information, and before it was, we can recruit and bring these kids in at larger numbers, put them in the fall program, baseball specific here, put them in the fall program, work them out, keep them around, and then ultimately add them to the roster or cut them pretty much, when it was appropriate. Now there's a roster cap that's different from what happened when we increased the roster size after COVID, and then of course NIL and the transfer rules have changed. So now they've got to get down to 34 players. They can carry 40 up until December 1st at Division One. I might be a little off with some of these numbers, but ultimately you have to show up to college ready to go, right? So the recruiting now, especially at the higher levels, Division One particularly, you're not just competing against the other classmates in your grade across the country. You're now competing against all the kids in Division Three, NAIA, JUCO, Division Two, and other Division One programs that are already logged 100 college ABs and have qualified to play college baseball. Now they're able to transfer. So recruiting has changed because recruiting directors can now go into Starbucks and get on X and go into platforms like an On the Radar or PBR, PG, and pretty much filter to their physical needs. And then once they exhaust all that, if that kid's not available, then they go into the high school world. And they'll, a lot of guys will say, we're still recruiting high school, but it's not as clean cut as it used to be. Put it that way. Kids can be replaced very quickly if a transfer is available.
Oh yeah.
This has been one of my big topics, is sort of the standardization and the portability of the data on the player in the space.
Right.
You mentioned PBR and PG and On the Radar. Data is only as good. In-game stats are only as good as the competition, right? A home run is not created equally, based depending on who you're playing against. But then things even just measuring exit velo and other metrics that you're able to put in, is there how much of that is just left to the human element, right? Some guys coach, goose the machine up a little bit here. What is it just the Wild West in terms of what data is accurate or how it's calibrated or who's putting it in? What's the trust level, and how do we get to a point as an industry where everyone's sort of working off a standardized data?
It's very difficult.
SAT score. Yeah.
It's a great point. We were just at the ABCA, and that was exactly one of the conversations we had on our panel was, what one tech company is set, how it's calibrated might be different than the other. So going back to on the radar, we want to be agnostic. We want to ingest everybody's tech data so that we can build a more robust profile for the player to use. And by doing that, and then putting in the game information and allowing them to put video into the profile as well, and see like, hey, these are my showcase stats. This is what I did normally. This is like my average. You can start painting a very clear picture, which is going to lead to more hits than misses when it comes time to decide where they want to go to school, both ways, for the coaches and for the kids. But to answer your question, there's bat data, there's ball flight data, right? There's S&C metrics that they're measuring, speed data, and really it's all fragmented. And I really don't know if there's going to be a one specific verified metric that's universal. It's going to take a long time and a lot of businesses to get together, which, tech guys, they're very protective of their data and they don't see it that way. They want to be the best at capturing exit velocity, not part of the journey. So, they're going to need things like on the radar and other platforms to kind of synthesize this stuff and paint a holistic picture. So the answer is maybe, I don't see it coming all together personally.
Yeah, and actually, I was going to agree with you 100% because I look at it as like kind of we still use like 4 stars, 5 stars. Like there's no composite data in football or basketball. It's just like, hey, ESPN thinks this guy's number 1 in the nation. Hey, rivals are on 3 might think this guy's number 1 in the nation. So I guess baseball is kind of going through the same thing, and we might never ever get a clear cut number of a composite score being like this guy's the next Aaron Judge or or whatnot.
But that's true. But I will say that you can get verified metrics from different sources, and verified just means that there is oversight. It's not an emotional score. It's not subjective. It's taken by a laser or a TrackMan or Rapsodo or whatever it may be. And they may have their own, precision issues, whatever, but they're all consistent with themselves, right? So just like if you have a kid who's a 5-star and a 4.5 and a 4, there's one thing that's for certain: the kid can play, right? So those rankings may differ based on their rubrics and what they're, measuring and how they do it. But if you have enough of that data and you synthesize it, you can get a clear-cut picture of, is this kid playable? Because it's very rare you're going to have a 2-star and a 5-star in those situations. Like you might have a 4 and a 4.5 and a 5, but the gap between 2 and 5 is pretty evident, right? So I think it'll probably remain fragmented, but I think verification can be better, and then processing those verifications to build a more robust profile is possible. It's what we're trying to do. And I know, Kyle, I've read in your I think it was there's a company that's doing it. It was just in your newsletter. I can't think of the name of it.
Yeah, one of our sponsors, actually, MPI, they're trying to do it.
Right.
I think they're probably basketball and like turf sports, like football, soccer is probably what they're leaning into first. But yeah, same ideas. Like, hey, we're putting out scouting combine for how fast can you run, how high can you jump, like, literally what you see at the NFL draft. And, I love the idea. It's a simple and straightforward concept. I think the challenge or the hurdle, the bar to cross in that space is branding yourself a little bit, right? It's, when I get my Experian credit score, right? Like that means something to somebody. Your SAT score, ACT score means something to somebody. It's like you have to get like enough scale that when someone says, hey, here's my MPI score, or whatever the metric is, whatever the measurement is that like people accept like, oh, this is a good indicator. And, or in the case, like they're doing 40 times and things like that, like, hey, we know that like, this is a brand that like, brings qualified proctors more or less, into take these scores. And it's not just some guy's high school coach putting in his 40 time.
Right. And
which they do, but like, you got to fight that. You got to get over that hurdle somewhere.
Right, and that's not to get into a tech rabbit hole here, but what we're working towards is to be on the radar, almost more like a lab core, where you may get a blood test using one mechanism, GE might make it, and then you may have something from Siemens, right? But when those things are put into an agnostic platform like we're building, you can take a look at that player's resume or portfolio and say, there's a story being told here from different verified sources, right? And we can detect that this is a really good athletic player that has plus speed, whether it's the 40 or the 60 or the 30 or the 5'10", they have agility and speed. It's evident here in these 5 verified measurements that he's taken over the last 3 years.
Makes sense.
Is
Velo's 89 here, 91 there. It almost doesn't matter. It's like you could paint a picture.
Right. And then, but like say you go to a PBR event, and this is like what I always preach as a baseball guy is like your exit velocity is what you're capable of at maximum strength when the ball hits the barrel and everything lines up. What your average is who you are. So if your floor is 70 miles per hour and one day you hit 87, and then the rest of your hits are 75, 70, you're capable of getting there, but this is the average, right? So I always encourage our players, like in the facility, we want to try to raise that floor so that we're getting closer, that our average is getting closer to our maximum output. So like Kyle Schwarber doesn't lace a line drive, more than 20 miles per hour different than the ball he puts in the seats, right? He's a single for him is like 98 miles per hour. Home runs 115, right? That's average when he makes contact. Like his miss hits are like foul balls on breaking ball. It's not like if he hits the barrel, it's going to work out. So he's going to, he's going to hit the ball hard. And that's what we want to see, right? People get fixated on that one highlight, metric. It's like, oh my God, I hit the ball 100 miles per hour. Have you ever accomplished that in a game and how many times?
Do you let 32-year-old former athletes over the hill athletes on your platform on the radar?
Absolutely, man. You can, we'll start looking at the Delco League and Perky and see if we can get them in and start recruiting guys.
Well, this is one of the things Kyle's charged with here is, we're going to be doing like some product and tech reviews. It would be hilarious. I would love to get him in on the radar profile and so we can chronicle his.
Day. So we do workouts with our programs that we work with, and we capture them. You're welcome to come. We have one on February 22nd.
We'll bring a camera. And we'll feature it all.
You could check it out and see how it plays out, and then participate. And we'll get your report back. It'll be a lot of fun.
Kyle, you hit balls with Don Brown at Victus last year. What was your exit velo?
My exit velo is probably somewhere around 60 to 70. I would probably say maybe 75. I really laced one, but it wasn't good.
I did
I don't know if it was a track. It was aluminum.
That was when the torpedo bats were like all the rage.
Okay. Yeah.
So you had the bigger barrel. I think I got a 74 about 2 months ago when I was working out for Florida. But my average, Frank, is like 58. So I barreled one at 74. It was all downhill from there.
Just got to put some more time in. That's all.
Frank, we do our research here on the pod. What do you think second base for the 1996 Pub League champion Northeast High School? What do you think Frank Decembrino would have hit back then?
Probably more in that 78 to 82.
Hell yeah.
That's pretty good.
That kid was definitely a singles hitter that could really pick it defensively. And I think I played every position on that team. My time in high school, I think I played like 3 different positions because I was like a defensive guy. But, unfortunately, I didn't work out in college because you got to really hit in college. So kind of got exposed when the velocities went up. But that's why I'm a coach now.
Yeah, there you go.
So
you have I know you have some background working with some facilities, kind of consulting, helping stand a few up. So you can talk about that as much as you want, but I like your philosophy on the facility game is that, and correct me if I'm wrong here, a lot of people approach it the wrong way, right? You're trying to monetize hours and minutes and space and, cut that thing up into as many pieces as you can and fill as many hours and most revenue per square foot. And, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but it sounds to me like you think that might be a race to the bottom, right? Whereas you kind of prefer this like dues model where you have a facility and you don't have to worry about more like the private school model where someone's just paying and they're able to use the space. So I'll shut up there and kind of let you explain it better, but tell me your unique view on the facility space. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. So ultimately when we had Ambler Sports Academy, we basically were trying to finesse private lessons, small groups, rentals to the public. And then eventually what happened was when the Boilermakers were developed, team training. And it's a really difficult puzzle. And who was kind of getting the short end of the stick were these really committed players that were in the Boilermakers that needed more access to the facility. And we kind of understood that the facility doesn't provide development, it enables it. So what we needed was kind of like the boxing gym for our players. They needed a place to come in and hit the bag. And it was a kind of a restrictive environment trying to operate the traditional facility model. So what we did here at Clubhouse was we took the two brands that live in this facility for training, the Bandits and the Boilermakers, and we made it part of their player fee and their tuition, so to speak, or registration fee, that they would gain access through player memberships, which afforded them an opportunity to use the facility during designated times when it's busy. And then we have, pretty much look at the day out and say, hey, there's nobody in there. We're just going to expand the opportunity to use the facility. So that type of access does a couple things. It reinforces the player individual responsibility that we preach, which is, you're not going to only get better when you're training and practicing with your coaches. There's a lot of individual responsibility involved in being a good athlete. So you've got to come in and get on the tee, flip to a teammate, throw a bullpen, work on the bands, use the facility, and kind of have that guide. And I'm a teacher at heart, so guided discovery is a big thing for me when you're talking about physical acquisition of skill. Kids kind of have to figure it out. They have to work on their own. There's a lot of value there. So the player membership model provides that opportunity. And then ultimately the guys that coach our teams, a good amount of them are qualified instructors. And what we wanted to do was give them the ability to, kind of run their own book of business in addition to what we're doing with the teams. And we can do that because, we don't really need to we don't sell the facility outside of our members. So if an instructor, kind of like golf, if one of our members wants a lesson or jump into a small group, they have the ability to do that in-house. They don't need to leave, and our instructors don't need to leave. So basically, it's the best way to figure out the equation of how do I have an instructor be a coach and maintain their book of business, but also keep the main thing, player development for our teams, which is our membership. That's how we developed the facility here. And I'm happy to report that it's packed. I mean, we even have alumni members and college players fit that the most, but we also have Major League Baseball players and minor league baseball players who grew up in one of our programs are coming back here. And then during the school day, they're in here with the same instructors and coaches they had when they were kids. But we were packed all winter, and we're packed, 7 days a week right now. And it's working out really well.
Now, for alumni like that, like, are they paying, or is it just like, hey, that's one of the perks of being part of your program? They can come back and use it.
It's a substantial discounted rate for them to come back. It is a perk for playing with us because kids can't come in during the day, and a lot of these pro guys have pro friends that they're working on. We do have a rate for guys who weren't affiliated because I would love for it to just be, we'd have 100 guys at that level from these two programs, but there's probably 20 guys, and I'd say 10 of them are alumni, 10 of them are active players that were local that we know, from their past, and they pay a slightly different rate.
What percentage of facilities you think are currently using, or maybe will eventually use, something more like this model? And is baseball, my view of it's always been like baseball is maybe more difficult to get facility space. Lots of other sports, pretty easy to find a basketball hoop, right? Soccer, you can practice outside. Football, you can, find a buddy, throw a football, whatever. But like baseball, you need a pitching machine often. You need a tunnel. There's certain things that baseball needs that some other sports don't. And I've always found it difficult, both for me and my kids, to as someone who's not a member of a club, to just show up somewhere and find some space to use. So how do you see that balance just in the marketplace? Not for you guys, but who's adopting this model? Who's not? Is there anybody who really does, out there, that really does well with just like the traditional pay by hour model?
So I believe, and if you ask me like what's coming down the road, I think that the evolution of these organizations and what's happening with player development, I feel that most organizations are going to work to get their own private space like we're doing here at Clubhouse. I think they're going to work to either develop or have a relationship where they control a field or fields. And I believe they're also going to try to bring in those layered assets that kids are actually going after outside of their ecosystem, like strength and development, speed training, pitcher development. I believe that is the future. I don't think there's going to be a lot of third-party partnerships with some of these strong organizations, because I think the value is going to come from that player development. And having it in one ecosystem makes it more efficient and practical for the kids. It also helps with the kitchen table economics at home. So if we have the facility, we have the field, and we have the S&C guy, nutritionist, tutor, and it's all part of this Boilermaker or Bandits or a Clubhouse, whoever experience, then they come to one space, develop, train, use it for their membership time, and they're not traveling all over the suburbs of Philadelphia getting to a specialist Monday through Friday. It allows for more development. And it also is a better business model, because then your organization is not just hinging on, it's more about retention than it is like trying to get new players all the time. It's like, you can really add value with the kids already there.
Yeah, Kyle and I talk about this all the time. It kind of dials back a little bit to the specialization piece, but it's how we think that clubs are going to kind of win in the future. The ones that kind of adopt like the township model in a way. So like you're playing baseball, you're playing basketball, you're playing soccer, all under the same flag. Do you see, obviously you see that becoming a trend, because you mentioned all that stuff that, even one club can just do the strength and conditioning, the health, all that stuff. But are you guys at Partners, are you guys at Clubhouse Partners looking into expanding in new sports? I obviously know baseball and softball are your bread and butter right now.
So I think it could be on the roadmap to get into other sports. I've consulted personally for other organizations and other sports outside of before Clubhouse. And I think there is a possible, opportunity there, just because the fact that we're talking about it and we think that could happen means that there's a solution that needs to come to the surface. I've seen it with like the Monarchs in Philly. They do basketball, soccer, and they have a really good, core youth foundational program. Baseball happens to be probably their most popular sport, but they did such a good job there that they've extended into other sports. And I do think that can happen to an extent, but I just don't know if there's going to be a future where outside, when you get above rec, parents are going to want a little bit more specialization in what they're investing in for the sport that their son or daughter is chasing. And I think there's a difference between like, I play multiple sports when I'm older because I have a passion. I really put my heart and soul at both of them. And there's playing just to check the box to play multiple sports. Like you kind of have to have everybody at the same level of like expectations and what the competition level is for it to work. But I do think it's an opportunity. Listen, Fieldhouse is a privatized rec center, right? Like, because I grew up in Philly, like getting inside a rec building to shoot hoops, growing up in Alany and in Fox Chase. When I was a kid, it was very difficult because it was almost like I felt like some of the rec centers were designed to not let you in, right? And find a way to close the doors. And we came along with Fieldhouse and said, this is it. It's open to the public. Like, figure it out, but we're here. You have to pay for it. And people didn't mind paying a premium to have guaranteed space. And I don't think people are going to find a problem with paying a premium to be in an organized program that offers multiple sports. So 100% think it will happen. I just don't know how it's going to shake out as far as like managing the different levels of rec and community and travel and all that stuff.
That's a good point. So you think there's almost like an age cutoff there? Like they're approaching teen years where it's like, all right, now I got to pick my sport if I'm going to devote this level of time to it.
I don't even know if it's you have to pick picking the sport is one thing. I think you got to follow the kid's passion, and that's where they invest, because ultimately the kid's going to invest his time or her time into what they care about the most. That doesn't mean they don't like playing basketball if they're a baseball player. It just means that their experience of playing basketball in the Glenside Youth Athletic Club League, which is an awesome rec level, high school basketball program. It's very different than playing for like Roman Catholic and, Team Jacko, right? Like that's different. Very difficult for a kid to play basketball at that level and a kid to play baseball for like the Philly Bandits. I mean, I know that ethically, and, I wish it was different. It's just, it's really difficult to manage both.
Just piggybacking on that, just from personal experiences, like, yeah, I would play travel ball and I play CYO ball, and we talk about specialization, and I think my family and myself did a pretty good job with playing 3 different sports and whatnot. But when high school came around, it was focus on one, and I decided to focus on basketball and drop soccer and baseball. And I agree 100% with you. If you're playing for the Philly Bandits, or you're playing for Montgomery AAU, or you're playing for one of Kyle Lowry's teams, it's kind of tough to be like, I have this awesome opportunity because of the opportunity you guys provide and the experiences you guys provide, to not kind of go full bore into those kind of clubs and stuff.
Yeah. And it's the nature of the beast right now. And I know that, I was a phys ed teacher. I taught how to play every, in lifelong sports was the whole, objective of my curriculum, of our curriculum as high school teachers. And I truly believe in that, but I think there's a difference between a lifelong sport and participating and having fun and competing. And these kids that we're dealing with, it's who they are, like they are driven to excel in this, discipline, which is baseball. And I think that's not a negative thing. I think if they don't achieve the highest level of success, even a Major League Baseball player records their last out at some point, right? It's, what did you learn on your journey that helps you be a better person, parent, partner, spouse down the road? And if we can contribute to that, that's the difference between, when I played just like UCYO hoops in high school, it was my favorite thing to do, but I was trying to be, a college baseball player. I had to put more time into that, but I still enjoyed I played basketball as an adult for years after I played baseball. So I think sometimes when we talk about sports specialization, we kind of put everything in the same bucket. And I think we got to be a little bit more high level thinking of what that actually means. That's all.
Yeah. I'm pretty, personally, I mean, like, I'm pretty pragmatic about it too, because there's some stuff out there like, hey, specialization is not good. Certainly at a younger age, at age 8, if you're playing 12 months of soccer and nothing else, like, it's a different story than,
totally agree.
Playing baseball for 10 months out of the year at age 13 when you're serious about it.
Right.
It's more your choice at that age. The other side of it is like, the alternatives the kids are doing can be a lot worse, right? You could say, well, the difference between specialization versus playing 2 sports, maybe it's better to play 2, for as long as you can. But the alternative is potentially really bad in like today's society, right? It's lots of phone time. It's lots of video games. It's, it's getting in other trouble, drugs and alcohol and things like that. Like, say what you want about, like, nitpick about being in the facility too much, but like, it's a lot better sometimes than the alternative. And I think that gets lost in the broader conversation at times too.
I'm glad you brought that up. I can tell you that as the director of the Boilermakers, one of the reasons we had to kind of move towards the clubhouse model is because, my son, he's a senior right now, and he's on his way, he's kind of out of it now, but his high school years, these kids from like SCH and GA, they were all friends, like, whatever high school. Dad had a facility. Like, I was in there on Friday nights sometimes, like, falling asleep. They were in there hitting. I mean, they were hanging out at the facility, like, getting something to eat, hitting. And I'm thinking, like, this is driving me crazy. But at the same time, like, what else could they be doing? And so to me, it was like, hey, sports specialization, I get it. All the, the practical things that can happen from overuse and stuff. But like, there are some kids that just love baseball or soccer or basketball. Like kids love Star Wars and Legos. Like, they just love being around. They're gym rats, and listen, Fieldhouse, I don't think Mark would mind me saying this, but Mark Jackson, like, he's friends with my partner, the founder, and kids are just like, he's in there all the time. Just they just like being around the sport, and they're not out there like going 100% and suicides every time they're in there. Sometimes they're just shooting hoops and hanging out. But there's part of that too, that kids want to do that stuff, and that's okay.
Yeah. It's a good hobby, if nothing else.
We have, I know you subscribe to the newsletter. Thank you for doing that. We call it the Youth Sports Facilities Arms Race in the newsletter and stuff. I just wanted to kind of see, like, you own the field house. It's been around for a while, and now you're just seeing these $200 million complexes kind of sprout up, and then 2 hours outside of any metro area, and then there's another one sprouting up $200 million 30 minutes away and stuff. I just want to see, youth sports is heating up. It's awesome. But as a guy who runs a large one himself, a multi-purpose facility himself, do you see these kind of being sustainable? And what's your thoughts kind of on that industry?
Man, it's a great question. I think there's tiers to facilities and what their purpose is. Some of these destination complexes that you're seeing are coming up because there's an appetite for people to have that experience, to go to what almost looks like a amusement park to play their sport and have that professional feeling and get the cool gear and the cool food and, be somewhere where there's just hundreds of kids like you and families, and it's intoxicating. And then there's places like Fieldhouse, which is a little bit more community oriented, where we wanted to change the game and bring resources to the city that business wise didn't make sense, to be honest with you. I mean, that anything worth doing, right? You want to do something that's never been done before, but to build a multi-sport space in Center City, Philadelphia, with the cost of rent and parking and all those hurdles, you have to, you better have some good programming and it better be worth people's time for them to pony up to do it when they are our rec center. So I think each facility has a different tier to it. And I think that some of these destination tournament sites, just like with the golf course boom, after Tiger hit the scene in the early 2000s, you saw this crazy boom of golf course development. And the ones that are around today, there's a lot of attrition. And the ones that are around today are the more, program-oriented clubs, golf clubs that kind of, I don't want to say survived, but they definitely had sustainability. I think that's going to happen with these facilities as well. I think you're going to see, unfortunately, some that are going to be mismanaged and not understand what they actually just did. There's a few that I can think of. And then there's a few that are going to develop the right relationships and partner with the right people and make it a more community-based opportunity as well. And that's all going to be on who's leading. But I think just like you see in other businesses, there's going to be a boom and there's going to be a kind of thinning of the herd. But a lot of them are popping up because it's really difficult to secure fields through municipalities, townships, and school districts. And the demand to play in these organizations, privatized groups, whether it's soccer or baseball, it doesn't matter. There's rules to get on the fields. There's still community sports competing with the travel sports. So the travel people did what they did originally, which was, we'll find a way, and people don't mind paying for it. So now you have these complexes. So, Yeah,
and it seems a lot of them get greenlit because the town or municipality or whatever local public arm is willing to support it because they could justify it, because again, the travel piece brings people in and they're spending money on hotels and restaurants, and a lot of times it seems like the facility turning a profit would be a bonus, but it's not even. It almost doesn't matter because they could justify it on the tourism dollars. My personal feeling is I wish more of the money in the space would move towards the community-based facility, the clubs like you guys have, because that's where people spend most of their time, right? You're talking about guys in there on Friday night hanging out week after week. And maybe you go to a handful or half a dozen or even a dozen tournaments a year, but you're still spending most of your time, a lot of your games, all your practices, your workout time in the localized facilities, which, don't get as much love. And I know you can't justify investment in those on a tourism basis, but it sounds like maybe there's an opportunity there on the club membership dues, basis to see more investment in that side of things.
You're exactly right. And that's exactly one of the things that we're pursuing as Clubhouse, is to find those people, those influential folks that have done a lot of great work, build a sustainable program. It's reliable. There's good people under their leadership, and parents and families, kids, they want to be there. And that's exactly who we want to align with. I also think too, I'm really motivated to invest and convince the greater baseball, community to invest in professional development for coaches and instructors, because they're with the kids so much, whether it's community level or, high-end travel program. It's really difficult for them to make a living doing what they love, because, we'll pay a lot of money. People pay a lot of money to go to a big event or tournament, and then they'll complain about their training dues when we try to tell them, like, hey, we've got to pay for the facility, and the professional who's working with you is not discounted. Like, this is what they do for a living, and that's where we are now in this space. And going back to me, it's an easy thing to solve if the people that are providing the capital understand the return on investment. If you can develop instructors and coaches to be better in their craft and support them, compensate them appropriately, provide healthcare, but all the things that somebody else would get in a professional environment, they're going to lean in more and create that better experience, and more kids are going to want to be a part of it. And to me, it's like the easiest thing to see, but I feel like I'm pushing a boulder up a hill when I talk to some of the people that invest in these things. It's almost like, how can we do more with less people? And I'm like, I just don't know if that's ever going to work in our space. The sensei means so much to these kids. It's not, tech isn't going to replace that. It's that love and affection they get during their time playing the sport that matters the most. I mean, we all know, you probably all have a coach or somebody who you think about, and it makes you feel like, man, that was the best, having that guy in my life. Like, that's not going away.
It's good. Last one from me. And baseball, you kind of mentioned it there, like more players and stuff. Baseball is having a pretty good moment right now with youth, killing it over the last 5-7 years. I think some of that's pitch clock. There's lots of other things, letting players express their personalities, having a cultural moment. Sounds like it's probably going to be a strike or a lockout next year to some extent, the major league level.
Yep.
You're on the ground with a lot of these guys. What do you, how much of an impact do you think that has? Because it's in such a good spot right now, and it feels like a strike would just like pour cold water on a lot of the growth we've seen.
I'm really worried about it and concerned. And where I think it's going to affect us the most is we all have to do our best to support the community programs, no matter where you fall in the contingent of, travel, on this, on that. But the kids have to play in their community to get into the ecosystem, and we all have to be aware of that. And I think that's where the strike and lockout is going to hurt the most, is because as baseball loses favor because it's not present in homes and it's not passed down because it's not there, you're going to have less kids wanting to go play t-ball, quick ball, coach pitch, or give it a shot, because just as passionate as we are about growing our sport and our business models, lacrosse, basketball, soccer, they're in some cases better at their growth right now. They're not going to say, hey, we're not going to try to expose you to lacrosse because baseball, a 5, 6, 7, 8-year-old kid doesn't think baseball is cool right now because it's not around. It's going to have an impact. It's the same impact. Philadelphia has been, I'll tell you what, I've been fortunate in my journey as a business entrepreneur with sport, baseball, because the Phillies have been relevant. I started my first game in 2007, and to today, we are a baseball city. I know that, we love the Birds, we love the Flyers and the Sixers, but Citizens Bank Park, the Phillies, the organization, I know there's a lot going on right now with players and stuff, but at its core, we are a very good baseball city with an incredible experience. If we don't have that, that's going to have a major trickle-down impact on community and travel baseball. I grew up with, the 93 Phillies were everything, and they didn't win the World Series, right? So I didn't see a Eagles playoff game and like win until I was like a season ticket holder myself. Like, so I think we have a little bit of a, short-term, long-term memory deficiency here, but I think it's going to play out in a negative way for us. We got to work. And here's the thing. It's not going to impact the travel programs immediately because a lot of those kids are so committed to the sport, and college is right in front of them, in high school. It's going to affect us in the pipeline. And then we're going to feel it 5 years after. There's going to be attrition at the community level.
Yeah, especially with flag football kind of coming in and being hot, and they're in the springtime too. I couldn't agree with you more.
Yeah, and flag football is awesome, man. It's like those things aren't going to stop. That was my point. Like, baseball's got to really pay attention to what's going on right now. And I know they're aware of it, but I'm sweating bullets about it, to be honest with you.
Yeah. Yeah. My money's on some sort of a lockout or strike.
That's what it was looking
Frank,
like.
Yeah. Frank's been really good. Why don't you tell our audience, where they can find you or more about Clubhouse Partners, if certainly baseball clubs in the Northeast interested in getting in touch with you.
Sure. Yeah. My email's real easy. It's frank@clubhousepartnersinc.com. And we have a Clubhouse Baseball Academy website. We have an On the Radar Sports website, and we have a BoilermakersBall.com website. And you can find out more information on everything we're up to. It's just pulling on one of those threads, and you can get to me pretty easily. And I'm happy to talk shop and baseball and youth development with anybody. You can see it's my passion.
No better place to talk to Frank, by the way, than at the Buying Sandlot Summit, April 14th and 15th in Philly. You'll be there. You'll be there on stage, right? So we'll be talking about a lot of these things in person as well. So, if you check him out and meet him in Philly in a couple months. Frank, thanks so much for joining. Appreciate your time. And we'll talk soon. Man.